Lost and found. Agnes squinted at the road sign, its lettering blurred by the late afternoon sun. Bates, Bates, she muttered, tapping a manicured nail against the steering wheel. Where in tarnation is Bates Street? Bingo night at St. Bartholomew's was her highlight of the week, and being late was simply unacceptable. Especially tonight, she had a feeling her lucky troll doll, Bartholomew, tucked securely in her purse, was ready for a big win. She'd sworn she'd followed the directions Mrs. Higgins had scribbled on the back of a grocery receipt, but somehow, she'd ended up in a neighborhood she didn't recognize. Cookie-cutter houses lined the streets, each with identical lawns and meticulously trimmed hedges. It was like stepping into a Stepford nightmare. A black cat darted across the road, and Agnes gasped, gripping the wheel tighter. Bad luck indeed, she muttered, making a mental note to buy an extra lottery ticket to counteract the feline omen. Spotting a figure hunched over a sketchbook on a park bench, Agnes pulled over. He looked young, with shaggy brown hair falling across his forehead, and a t-shirt adorned with what looked like a melted clock. Probably harmless. Excuse me, young man? Agnes called out, rolling down her window. Her voice, though a little shaky, still held a note of authority. The young man startled, nearly dropping his sketchbook. He scrambled to his feet, his cheeks flushing a shade of pink that reminded Agnes of strawberry jam. Oh. Hello? He stammered, adjusting his glasses. I seem to be a tad disoriented, Agnes admitted, carefully avoiding the word lost. I'm trying to get to St. Bartholomew's Church on Elm Street for bingo. Do you know the way? He hesitated, then pointed vaguely down the street. Elm Street, yeah, it's complicated. This neighborhood is a bit of a maze. He looked at her car, a vintage powder blue Cadillac, and then back at her, his brow furrowing with concern. Are you sure you're all right? It's getting late. Agnes puffed out her chest. Perfectly fine, thank you. Just a small detour. But if you know the way. She let the sentence hang, hoping he'd take the hint. He chewed on his lip for a moment, then seemed to come to a decision. Look, I'm heading that general direction anyway. I could show you. It would probably be faster than trying to explain it. Agnes eyed him suspiciously. Accepting rides from strangers was hardly in her rule book, but Bartholomew was urging her on. Well, she said slowly, I suppose that would be acceptable. But mind you, young man, I have pepper spray. She patted her purse for emphasis. He blinked, his eyes widening slightly. Right. Pepper spray. Noted. He grabbed his sketchbook and a worn leather bag, then carefully climbed into the passenger seat, giving Bartholomew a wide berth. The car smelled faintly of lavender and mothballs. Mark, he said, extending a hand. Mark Olson. Agnes Plumtree, she replied, shaking his hand briskly. Now let's get a move on. Bingo doesn't wait for anyone, not even a lady with pepper spray. She put the car into gear and with a lurch, they were off, leaving the identical houses and perfectly manicured lawns behind. Agnes had a feeling that her detour might just turn out to be more interesting than bingo. Old movies and new directions. The aroma inside Mark's Corolla, a veteran of countless commutes and curbside parking jobs, was a peculiar blend of linseed oil and stale coffee. Agnes hugged Bartholomew, his orange synthetic fibers brushing against her skin. Are you positive this isn't too much trouble, dear? I hate to intrude. Mark, adjusting the rearview to catch her eye, flashed a quick, reassuring grin. Not at all, Mrs. Plumtree. I was honestly about to embark on yet another fruit bowl painting. This is a welcome change of pace. With a jolt they were off, prompting Agnes to clutch the dashboard. Harold never possessed such vigorous driving habits. Sorry, Mark muttered, easing up on the gas pedal. Just a reflex, I suppose? He stole a glance at her, noticing the slight tremor in her hands. So, bingo then? Big stakes tonight? Every evening becomes momentous when the progressive jackpot beckons, Agnes replied, a spark of mischief dancing in her eyes. Harold and I, we'd go faithfully every Tuesday for 30 years. Since he's been gone. Her voice faded. Mark cleared his throat, casting about for another topic. You mentioned watching old films? Agnes brightened instantly. Oh, weren't they glorious? Turner Classic Movies is my sanctuary. Last night, the Philadelphia Story graced the screen. Hepburn Grant, sheer brilliance. Mark's brows shot skyward. Seriously? That's a perennial favorite of mine. The sharp dialogue, the chaotic situations, it's flawless. Flawless. Precisely the word. Harold, bless his soul, gravitated toward westerns. The John Wayne archetype. But even he conceded Hepburn possessed a certain je ne sais quoi. A warm, rumbling chuckle escaped her. Did you ever see Bringing Up Baby? With the leopard on the loose? Are you kidding? A masterpiece. I even tried to persuade my landlord to let me adopt a leopard. He proved resistant to the idea. Agnes laughed again, a vibrant, spontaneous sound that lifted a weight Mark hadn't realized he was carrying. The air in the car felt lighter somehow. You know, Agnes mused after a comfortable interlude, Harold always maintained I possessed an aptitude for selecting propitious numbers. Perhaps you should accompany me to bingo sometime. Might bring us both some luck. Mark wavered. Bingo wasn't exactly his preferred pastime. Yet the prospect of an evening spent with Agnes, delving into cinematic history and sharing stories, held an unexpected appeal. Perhaps, he replied, hedging. We'll see. As they approached the bingo hall, a sprawling, brightly illuminated edifice on the edge of town, Agnes gestured. There it is! Just pullin' over there, dear. Mark guided the car into the bustling parking area. Agnes unfastened her seatbelt, her face radiating anticipation. Thank you so much, Mark. You're a true gem. And I so enjoyed our chat about, well, everything, really. Reaching into her purse, she produced a slightly crumpled $5 bill. Here, for the petrol. Mark waved a dismissive hand. No, no, Mrs. Plumtree. My treat. Truly. Agnes pressed the bill into his palm. Nonsense. A kindness deserves recompense. Now you drive carefully, and give those lucky numbers some thought, won't you? She squeezed Bartholomew close, opened the car door, and hurried toward the entrance, a small yet resolute figure vanishing into the throng. Mark watched her go, the $5 still nestled in his hand. He felt a peculiar stirring, an unforeseen tug of something akin to intrigue. It transcended mere gratitude or basic courtesy. It was a faint illumination, a glimmer of possibility amidst the mundane landscape of his daily existence. Starting the car, the engine grumbled into action. As he pulled away, he glanced back at the bingo hall, its luminous facade inviting. Maybe, just maybe, he'd give those lucky numbers a second thought. Dreams and doubts. I always thought I'd be gone by now, Mark admitted, his voice barely a whisper above the hum of Agnes's ancient sedan. The dashboard clock glowed a sickly green, illuminating the worry etched on his face. Living in some big city, you know? Making art. Agnes gripped Bartholomew, her lucky troll doll, tighter. She glanced at Mark, his brow furrowed as he stared out the windshield. Art, you say? He nodded, a quick, jerky movement. Yeah. Painting, mostly. But, it's hard to leave. Mom needs help around the hardware store. And, well, it's comfortable here. Safe. He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Pathetic, isn't it? Dreaming of galleries and critiques, but too afraid to pack a bag. Agnes didn't say anything for a moment. The air hung thick with unspoken anxieties. She remembered a time when she too had dreams, vivid and bright, before they were slowly dulled by the relentless gray of everyday life. The bingo seemed a little less urgent, a little less important. Safe can be a gilded cage, dearie, she finally said, her voice raspy. Sometimes you have to rattle the bars a bit. Mark sighed, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. The car rattled as they turned onto a wider street. Almost there, he announced, pointing to a brightly lit building in the distance. As they pulled into the parking lot of the VFW hall, a wave of sound washed over Agnes, the excited chatter of women, the clatter of bingo cards, the rhythmic voice of the caller testing the microphone. It was a sound she knew well, a sound that usually brought her a sense of belonging. But tonight it felt different. As she looked at the familiar scene, a pang of something she couldn't quite name, sadness, perhaps, or maybe just a deep, aching loneliness, settled in her chest. Mark parked the car. "Here you go," he said, turning to face her. "Bingo awaits." He smiled, but Agnes saw a flicker of something else in his eyes, a question, maybe, or a hint of his own longing. Agnes reached for the door handle, her fingers fumbling slightly. She looked at Mark, this young man with his artistic dreams and his self-imposed chains, and saw a reflection of her younger self. "Thank you, Mark," she said, her voice softer now. "For everything." She gathered her purse and Bartholomew, his bright pink hair a splash of color in the dim interior of the car. As she stepped out into the cool night air, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that the road ahead, for both of them, was about to take an unexpected turn. She walked toward the entrance of the bingo hall, but her mind was already drifting, wondering if safe was really where she wanted to be. The missing charm. Agnes squeezed through the double doors of the community hall, the cacophony of chattering voices and the rhythmic thump of bingo balls hitting their receptacles washing over her like a wave. The air hung thick with the mingled scents of cheap perfume, stale coffee, and anticipation. She clutched Bartholomew, her lucky troll doll, tighter, his wild, fluorescent orange hair tickling her wrist. "Agnes! Over here, love!" Mabel Higgins' booming voice cut through the din. Mabel, a woman built like a comfortable armchair and just as welcoming, waved from a table near the back, a kaleidoscope of bingo cards spread before her. Agnes shuffled towards her, navigating the crowded aisles. "Mabel, dear, so sorry I'm late. Had a bit of a detour." She didn't elaborate, not wanting to recount the embarrassing episode with the roundabout. Mabel chuckled, her ample bosom shaking. "Detour? You're telling me. Brenda saw you driving in the wrong direction halfway to Market Harborough. Said you looked like you were trying to outrun the apocalypse." Agnes forced a smile. Brenda exaggerates, as always. She settled into the vacant chair, pulling Bartholomew onto the table beside her cards. Except Bartholomew wasn't there. Panic, cold and sharp, sliced through Agnes. She patted her pockets, rummaged through her handbag, a black hole of receipts, cough drops, and forgotten spectacles, but Bartholomew was nowhere to be found. "Something wrong, love?" Mabel asked, her brow furrowing with concern. "Bartholomew, he's gone." "My lucky troll." Agnes' voice trembled, her carefully constructed composure threatening to crumble. Mabel patted her hand. "Oh, Agnes, don't fret. He'll turn up." "Maybe you left him in the car?" No, I had him when I came in. I remember squeezing him when that dreadful music started playing." Agnes' heart hammered against her ribs. Bartholomew had been her constant companion for years, a silly, sentimental talisman that somehow always brought her good fortune. Without him, she felt adrift, exposed. The numbers started being called, their sing-song rhythm usually a source of comfort, now grating on her nerves. Agnes stared blankly at her cards, the numbers blurring into an incomprehensible mess. She usually had a system, a practiced dance of daubing and marking, but tonight, her hand shook, and her mind felt like a tangled ball of yarn. "Eyes down, Agnes! You'll miss your chance." Mabel nudged her playfully, but Agnes couldn't muster a response. Each called number felt like a tiny hammer blow against her already frayed nerves. 32. 17. 5. It was all meaningless noise. The absence of Bartholomew was a gaping hole in her sense of order, a disruption to her carefully curated routine. She felt naked, vulnerable, convinced that tonight, luck would abandon her completely. A lucky find. The bingo hall's gaudy sign throbbed, a neon wound in the approaching darkness. Mark faltered at the entrance, unexpected reluctance snagging his steps. He thought he'd discharged his duty, delivered Agnes, watched her navigate the chaotic parking lot. Yet, a thread of unease, an insistent hum of worry, had reeled him back. Plus, the locket. He found her instantly. Agnes stood just inside, her posture defeated, a miniature troll, its tangerine hair a chaotic mess, clutched in her hand. He lengthened his stride, threading through the hopeful throng headed for the double doors. Agnes! She halted, jolted by his call. A confused frown smoothed away as she recognized him. Oh, it's you, dear. Am I lost already? He shook his head, extending his palm. Resting there, the aged silver glinted faintly. You dropped this in my car. Figured it was yours. A soft exclamation escaped her lips, her hand fluttering to her chest. The troll, Bartholomew, apparently, nearly tumbled. My locket! Bless you, kind soul! Bartholomew, and I thought it gone forever. Her fingers, trembling slightly, reached out. He deposited the piece in her open palm. Warm from his touch, the metal seemed to pulse in her grasp. Agnes gripped it. This was my mother's. It's been my good fortune, my talisman, for longer than I care to remember. Her voice wavered, and a glisten appeared in her eyes. I felt utterly adrift without it. Barely ever take it off, you see. I'm just relieved I spotted it, he said, a comfortable warmth blooming in his chest. More than just the satisfaction of returning lost property, it was the palpable joy transforming her face, the distinct brightening of her spirit. The earlier fog of disorientation had lifted, revealing a spirited spark. You've rescued my whole evening, you have! Agnes declared, her voice bubbling with renewed energy. She nestled the locket within the folds of her floral dress near her heart. Bartholomew here was quite despondent, weren't you, my little friend? She gave the doll a gentle jiggle. Mark chuckled. I was happy to help. He shifted, suddenly self-conscious, unsure how to proceed. Mission accomplished, charm retrieved, Agnes reassured. No reason to linger. But Agnes, it seemed, had other plans. Now you simply must come in. It's the least I can do. I'll buy you a card. Beginner's luck, you know. She beamed, her eyes mirroring the glittery embellishments on a nearby handbag. Besides, she added, leaning in conspiratorially, Bartholomew is adamant. He detects a favorable aura about you. Mark glanced at the pulsating marquee, then back at Agnes's eager face. He hadn't foreseen this. He hadn't foreseen any of it. Yet the thought of his silent apartment suddenly paled in comparison to the allure of numbered spheres and the company of a surprisingly vibrant woman and her peculiar, diminutive companion. He grinned. All right, Agnes. Let on. Diner delights. The numbers swam before Agnes's eyes. B14. I-22. She dabbed at her brow with a tissue, Bartholomew, her lucky troll doll, clutched tight in her other hand. She'd almost missed the last call, her ears still ringing from the chaotic cacophony of the bingo hall, 100 voices shouting numbers, the clatter of daubers, the squeak of plastic chairs. Then, a miracle. Oh, 68! Boomed the caller. Agnes stared at her card, a dizzying grid of possibilities. Oh, 68. There it was. She stabbed it with her dauber, a satisfying splodge of purple ink blooming on the page. Bingo! She croaked, her voice barely audible above the din. Silence descended, a ripple effect as heads turned her way. The caller, a woman with a beehive hairdo and a skeptical gaze, sauntered over. She scrutinized Agnes's card, her lips pursed. Finally, she nodded. Confirmed. We have a winner! A small wave of applause washed over Agnes as she shuffled to the front to claim her prize. $20. Not enough to retire on, but enough for a celebration. And suddenly, she knew exactly who she wanted to celebrate with. Outside, the parking lot buzzed with activity. Agnes spotted Mark leaning against his car, sketching in a small notebook. He looked up as she approached, a hesitant smile gracing his lips. Mark! Agnes called, waving her winning bingo card. I won! $20 whole. I was wondering, would you care to join me for a celebratory dinner? At Mr. Henderson's diner? It's just down the road. Mark looked surprised, then a little flustered. He glanced down at his sketchbook, then back at Agnes, his brow furrowed in thought. The setting sun painted his face in hues of orange and gold, highlighting the kind lines around his eyes. "Dinner?" he repeated, tilting his head. "Well, I hadn't planned on it, but—" He paused, considering. "That's very kind of you, Agnes. I'd be happy to join you." Agnes beamed, relief flooding her. "Wonderful! I'm just famished. All that concentration takes it out of you, you know." She tucked the $20 bill into her purse, Bartholomew bouncing against her wrist. "Let's not dawdle then. I hear Mr. Henderson makes a mean meatloaf." The bell above the door of Mr. Henderson's diner jingled merrily as they entered. The air inside was thick with the aroma of frying onions and freshly brewed coffee, a comforting balm to Agnes's frayed nerves. Mabel Higgins, the owner's wife, greeted them with a warm smile. "Agnes! Haven't seen you in ages." "And who's this handsome young man?" Mabel asked, her eyes twinkling. "Mabel, this is Mark. He, helped me find my way to Bingo earlier," Agnes explained, feeling a blush creep up her neck. Mabel's eyebrows shot up. "Oh, my dear, you looked so distressed when I saw you earlier. Did you get properly lost? You should have called, I'd have come and got you." "I was a little turned around, but Mark set me straight," Agnes said, patting Mark's arm. "And now we're celebrating my Bingo victory." "Well, congratulations are in order. Come on, sit yourselves down. Booth by the window?" Mabel gestured toward a cozy corner bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. "And what can I get you both to start?" "Stories and rainstorms." The bell above the diner door jingled as Agnes stumbled in, Bartholomew clutched tight in her hand. Mark followed close behind, a sheepish expression on his face. The aroma of frying bacon and strong coffee hung heavy in the air, a comforting blanket against the lingering disorientation. Behind the counter, Mr. Henderson beamed, his already rosy cheeks practically glowing. "Well now, what have we here? 2 new faces on a Tuesday. Come in, escape that dreadful humidity." He gestured to a booth by the window, wiping it down with a practiced hand. Agnes sank into the worn vinyl, sighing with relief. "Thank you, dear. I seem to have gotten myself thoroughly turned around. Happens to the best of us." Mr. Henderson chuckled, pouring 2 mugs of coffee. "Especially when the Bingo Hall moves locations without so much as a by your leave." He winked at Mark. Agnes here was on a mission. Mark slid into the booth opposite her. "I just pointed her in the right direction. Agnes has a very determined spirit." Agnes chuckled, taking a grateful sip of the coffee. "Determined to win, you mean? Bartholomew here." She held up the troll, its bright pink hair a startling contrast to her silver curls. "Brings me luck. Though today, he seems to have led me astray." "Perhaps he wanted an adventure," Mark suggested, a smile playing on his lips. He found himself surprisingly relaxed, the diner's unpretentious atmosphere a welcome change from the stark white walls of his studio. "An adventure? At my age?" Agnes laughed, the sound surprisingly youthful. "The only adventure I need is shouting bingo before Mildred Higgins does." They talked easily then, Agnes recounting tales of past bingo triumphs and near misses, each story punctuated with a playful jab at her rivals. Mark, in turn, spoke hesitantly of his art, the struggle to capture the light just so, the frustration of a blank canvas. Mr. Henderson refilled their coffees, a silent observer, a satisfied smile etched on his face. Suddenly, the sky outside turned a bruised purple. A low rumble of thunder vibrated through the floor. The first fat raindrops splattered against the window, quickly escalating into a torrential downpour. "Well now," Mr. Henderson said, his voice a touch louder to be heard over the drumming rain. "Looks like you two are stuck here for a while. This is a real frog strangler." Agnes peered out the window, a look of mild dismay on her face. "Bingo starts in an hour." Mark watched the rain streak down the glass, a strange sense of contentment washing over him. He wasn't sure why, but the thought of spending more time with Agnes, trapped in this cozy little diner, didn't bother him at all. Maybe Bartholomew engineered this too, he said, raising his voice to be heard over the din. Maybe he decided you needed a day off. A change of pace. Agnes looked at Bartholomew, then back at Mark, a thoughtful expression on her face. A slow smile spread across her lips. Maybe you're right, she said. Maybe he did. She leaned back in the booth, the rain drumming a steady rhythm against the roof, and for the first time that day, Agnes didn't seem to be in a hurry to be anywhere else. Chasing dreams. Young man, are you quite certain this is the right way to St. Bernadette's? Agnes Plumtree's query, threaded with a fragile anxiety, cleaved the still air of the waning afternoon. Bartholomew, her talismanic troll doll, swayed precariously from the depths of her overstuffed bag. Startled from his artistic reverie, Mark Olson lifted his head from his sketchbook. Yes, ma'am. Straight ahead. 5 blocks or so, on the left. He paused, concern creasing his brow as he observed the worry etched on her features. Are you okay? You seem a bit disoriented. A sigh, redolent of potpourri, escaped Agnes. Disoriented in more ways than one, dear. Lost in direction, adrift in this bewildering town, and perhaps most tragically, lost in the labyrinth of my own thoughts. Her gaze darted to his sketchbook. Is that artwork? A blush rose on Mark's cheeks, and he instinctively snapped the book shut. Just doodles. Nothing special. Nonsense. Let me see. With surprising strength, Agnes reached out, and Mark, caught off guard by her assertiveness, reluctantly surrendered his drawings. Behind thick lenses, her eyes meticulously examined the charcoal rendering of the ancient oak in the park. Extraordinary! Utterly extraordinary! You possess a gift, young man. A genuine talent. He shrugged, a familiar wave of insecurity threatening to drown him. It's just a pastime. A pastime? Agnes scoffed, her voice rising slightly. Don't you dare squander such a gift on mere pastimes. Life is far too brief for such folly. This should be shared. You know, I once dreamt of being a dancer. A celebrated ballerina, bathed in the glow of the stage. But circumstances intervened, didn't they? Bingo became my stage. She patted Bartholomew's synthetic hair. Don't let life extinguish your flame, dear. A novel sensation stirred within Mark, a long-dormant ember now flickering with renewed life. He had always derived joy from drawing, sculpting, creating. Yet the pragmatism required for a stable career had gradually suffocated his ardor. The art fair, Agnes declared abruptly, her tone regaining focus. Down by the riverfront. Are you participating? Mark shook his head. It hadn't crossed my mind. Consider it. More than consider, do it. It's the only path to realize aspirations. It's next month, correct? Ample time. She squeezed his arm, Bartholomew narrowly missing his eye. Promise me you will think about it. For a senior woman on her way to bingo. A genuine smile illuminated his face, reaching his eyes. I promise. Agnes beamed. Excellent. Now, about St. Bernadette's. Are you absolutely certain? Later that evening, Mark ventured into his neglected studio. Sunbeams filtered through the window, illuminating the floating dust particles and the forgotten canvases stacked against the wall, the hardened paint tubes a testament to his artistic drought. He picked up a slab of clay, the smooth coolness familiar and comforting in his grasp. Agnes's exhortation echoed in his thoughts. Don't let life extinguish your flame. He began to sculpt. He labored late into the night, the clay yielding under his skilled hands, slowly taking form. He felt a revitalized energy, a sense of purpose that had eluded him for years. He resolved to do it. He would participate in the art fair. He would pursue his aspirations, even if it was just a small, tentative step forward. His gaze fell upon the nascent sculpture, a whimsical representation of an old woman clutching a troll doll, the clay mouth hinting at a delicate smile. He owed Agnes this much. Art, awards, and affection. Disoriented from her earlier detour, Agnes was surprised by the lively atmosphere of the art fair. White canopies shimmered under the sun's glare, lining the town square like a regiment of spectral soldiers, and the air buzzed with the mingled aromas of grilling franks and turpentine. Her purse felt heavier than usual, the bingo markers inside a rattling percussion section of her anxiety. St. Bernadette's seemed an impossible distance away. She picked out Mark almost immediately. Poised beside his exhibit, he presented a vibrant collection of canvases, townscapes rendered with heightened color and raw emotion. He was lost in his own world, a brush still in hand, his brow creased in a deep frown despite the inactivity. "Mark?" Agnes ventured, her voice a mere thread in the tapestry of sounds. He jumped, the brush nearly escaping his grip. "Agnes! What brings you here?" "Well," she stammered, searching for an excuse that wouldn't betray her navigational failings. "I thought I'd offer a bit of encouragement for the creative pursuits." A rosy blush painted Mark's cheeks. "That's incredibly kind, Agnes. Though I doubt my work will even register. It's hardly revolutionary." He dismissed his paintings with a wave. "Just colorful." Agnes approached, truly examining the art. She discerned more than just chroma. She recognized the town's spirit, the way sunlight kissed the clock tower at twilight, the slick sheen on the cobblestones after a downpour. "Nonsense, Mark. It breathes. You've captured something truly special. A memory surfaced. Don't let that love of color lie hidden, let it sing out loud." He met her gaze, a spark of optimism igniting within. "You honestly believe that?" "I know it. Now, square your shoulders and project confidence. Even if it's a facade." He chuckled, drawing himself up. Easier prescribed than enacted. They spent the next hour in conversation, Agnes dispensing bolstering remarks while subtly attempting to reorient herself. As afternoon matured, the crowds thinned, replaced by a panel of judges in pristine linen. Mark grew visibly restless, pacing behind his display like a caged animal. Then, the pivotal moment arrived. A judge with clipboard in hand approached his booth. After a lingering appraisal of his artworks, she offered a smile. "Mr. Olson?" she asked, her tone imbued with professional warmth. "Congratulations. Your piece, Rainy Day Reflections, has been awarded the People's Choice Prize." Mark's jaw went slack. "Seriously? Me?" the judge affirmed, affixing a small blue ribbon to the painting's corner. "A profoundly stirring piece. It encapsulates the very essence of our town." A ripple of applause washed over the square. Still reeling, Mark looked to Agnes. Her face glowed, her eyes alight with joy. Later, at Henderson's diner, Agnes and Mark shared a booth, a celebratory slice of apple pie adorning the space between them. Mr. Henderson, positively beaming, replenished their coffee. Mabel Higgins, his wife, leaned over the counter. "So, Mark, what's the muse behind this sudden artistic windfall?" she inquired, winking at Agnes. Mark flushed crimson again. He stole a glance at Agnes, a bashful smile gracing his features. "Just a friend," he uttered, his voice soft. Agnes squeezed his hand beneath the table, a wordless acknowledgement of something deeper. The bingo markers could wait. Tonight held art, accolades, and the quiet promise of affection, a confection sweeter than any apple pie.